Hello and welcome just a family that's giving you something to talk about, or just a live TV as I like to call it. I'm your host, Melissa Krechler. Today we're going to be talking about the wake-up call, and not just the wake-up call, but stop waiting for the wake-up call. We're going to be talking about that today. I'm going to hand it over to my guest speaker in a moment, but I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today. Our sponsor today is Holistic Obsession. The Relaxation Reset Masterclass is what they're offering you. It is $99. Go and take a look at that. Create the life you desire and start with the Relaxation Masterclass, because when you start to relax, it helps you immensely. So I'm going to hand it over to our guest speaker, and she can tell you more about that and what she does. So Rebecca, would you like to do the honors?
Hi. Hello, everyone. I am a certified functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and board certified holistic health practitioner. I help driven women make more money without overworking by reversing adrenal burnout. And the Relaxation Reset is all about supporting your adrenal function so that you can operate at an optimal level and live the life that you'd like to without the symptom hijack. So it takes you out of stress mode and into relaxation mode.
Which is a huge benefit, Similar, but different is, when you're trying to make that change, and we're talking all about that today, right? Is making changes and not waiting for the wake-up call. When you're in a position where you're not happy with where you're at, or you're feeling unaligned, or, just like maybe that you're missing something, right? We tend to wait for like this wake-up call that says, oh, hey, hi, I'm here. You have no choice but to do it, right? The wake-up call for me is that you have no more choice. Like, you're at your wit's end, everything has come to a culmination, and you have no choice but to change. So whether that's for physicality, if that's a physical diagnosis of something that you may be going through, that you have to change your diet or your lifestyle, whatever, relationship, right? When your relationship gets to a point where it's at that do or die moment, that's the wake-up call, right? Is when we are experiencing something heavy, negative, that we have no choice at that point but to acknowledge the wake-up call. But we don't actually need that, and that's the purpose of today's episode. Is we don't need that wake-up call to really make those changes. We can do that as soon as we start to notice the issues. So with your relaxation, when we remove the emotional component of it, when we learn how to control our emotions and we learn how to relax into the here and now, so we're calm and we're at like this pleasant state where, maybe we're still a little bit stressed, maybe we're still thinking about what's going on, but we're not like, oh my God, I need to fix this now. Mm-hmm. That's kind of when we start to see, oh, I hadn't thought of this scenario, or I hadn't thought of this, or I didn't realize that I had this opportunity available to me. That's when we really start to see the different things that we can do to make those changes.
Yes, I completely agree. When you are operating from a place of stress mode, you're like a racehorse with blinders on. You're just tunnel vision, stress-based tunnel vision, overwhelmed, busy, go, go, go. And there could be very simple solutions to your problems all around you, but you don't see them because you're just in this stress-based tunnel vision. And when we get into that stress mode, typically the first things to go are rest and play, right? And those are the very things that are going to get you out of stress mode to begin with. So when we think about transitioning out of stress mode and into relaxation mode, it literally impacts your entire life. It impacts your physical health, impacts your mental health. When you are consistently operating out of stress mode, aka fight, flight, or freeze, everything takes 10 times the effort to do, whether it's a thought, whether it's an action. But when you are operating out of relaxation mode, rest and digest, everything is so much easier. You are in flow, right? And so there's no point in having everything cost 10 times the effort to be able to do the same exact action. So if you can get out of stress mode into relaxation mode, your entire life gets easier.
Yep. And not only that, when you're in that stress mode, what you're going through or what you're experiencing is more heightened. It's 10 times as strong, right? If you are going through a period in your life where maybe you're not happy. Let's talk off the top of my head, relationship. Okay. So if you're in a relationship and again, you're not happy, you're just not feeling happy, especially if you don't talk about it, if there's no change, if you don't do anything about how you're feeling, you don't communicate it, you don't any of that, it's going to get worse, right? You're going to feel like it's worse. And everything kind of gets heightened to the point where every little thing that your partner does is going to irritate you. And you're going to start getting resentful and angry. And you're going to be like, I told you not to do that. And like the whole world then becomes this huge issue, when in reality, maybe it's something that, if you just communicated, hey, when you do this, it really bugs me. Can we maybe do it this way? Right. And that one, when you're in relax mode and you're thinking logically and maybe not as emotionally, then you go, hey, this really bugs me. I'm getting really stressed out and I could really use your help. Can we do something about this? And then you have that calm, relaxed conversation.
Yep.
And maybe that's all it takes to remove all of that, right? And to make that change. So that's one of the things I love to tell people is when you learn to control your emotions, everything changes. Everything changes. Yep. Okay, so going back to not waiting for the wake-up call. This is literally life-changing. And I wish that more people understood just what the wake-up call is. So you have little indications constantly that you need to make changes. If something feels hard or if something feels negative or heavy, that's for me, the negativity, the heavy emotions, the stress, the traumas that we go through. Those are all little indications of, hey, we need to change. But before that, you kind of get those nudges. And we've done an episode on the nudges, but the nudges are, if you're walking down the street and you think, oh, I really need to stand up straight while I'm walking, right? And something as tiny as that could be a little nudge and, maybe I shouldn't take care of my body. The universe, whether you are spiritual, whether you're religious, doesn't matter. The universe gives you signs. There are signs everywhere for you to make changes. So I always say it's like a temper tantrum, right? So your kids come up to you. Most of us have children. So your kids come up to you and they're like, Mom, really want a candy. And you're like, no. But Mom, I really want a candy. No. And then that Mom, I really want a candy ends up becoming, slowly ends up becoming a lying on the floor, freaking out, kicking and screaming that they want an effing candy right now. And if you don't give it to them, it's the end of the world. That wake up call is them on the floor throwing a temper tantrum. If you had, at the beginning of that, been like, hey, here's candy. And I'm not saying give in to everything.
Right.
We are not saying that.
No.
But at the beginning of that, if you would listen to that nudge and go, well, maybe we can compromise, or maybe we could, instead of giving you a candy right now, I'm going to give you a cucumber or, these little mini cucumbers. I'm going to give you a mini cucumber right now. And after dinner, you can have a candy. Right. And you have that conversation instead of just saying no or ignoring it. You have that little mini conversation. You change the entire outlook of that. And then you don't get the big in your face wake up call that's temper tantrum.
1,000%. There's that saying that is, if you don't make time for your wellness, you have to make time for your sickness. And, those nudges, I like to call them your symptoms. Symptoms are simply your body's way of communicating with you. But so often people don't do anything about it. They're not either they don't even notice, they're not paying attention. They're so busy or so stressed out or so whatever, that they're not even listening to those little nudges, right? And that they wait and they wait and they wait and they wait until all of a sudden they're not functioning, or they have a diagnosed condition, or you need a medication now, or you need surgery now because you didn't listen the previous 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 5 years to those little nudges, to that communication from your body. Whereas if you had listened, if you'd paid attention and started to make those small shifts over time, then you wouldn't have gotten to that place of severe health to begin with. If we stop it from happening in the beginning, You don't need the diagnosis, you don't need the medication, you don't need the surgery. And this is not 100% all the time. Sometimes things just happen. But so many people wait for the wake-up call. And that's when they start actively making the changes that they need to make. And then the changes are much more complicated, much more difficult, take much more effort, time, money to take care of versus if you had done it from the beginning.
Yeah. One of the things that I think you and I both really wanted to mention on this episode is that it's never too early and it's never too late to start making those changes so that you avoid the wake-up call, right? Preventative measures. So taking care of your emotional health, your mental health, your physical health, and energetic health, your spiritual health, whatever health, like holistically, right? Looking at yourself as a whole and going, what do I need, right? And start making that a habit. And you don't need to do this, if you don't wait for the wake-up call. I'm going to reiterate that again. You start preventative work and you say, okay, I'm going to start making my physical health a habit. I'm going to go for a walk around the block, or I'm going to, have a dance party, or whatever that looks like. When you start putting those little habits into practice, and instead of becoming a habit, like instead of, you having to remind yourself, what does it take? 30 days for something to become a habit. So for 30 days, pick one thing and do that one thing for 30 days. And at the end of the 30 days, you just continue. And then it becomes a habit. And then you pick something else.
Yep.
Right. And, it's like brushing your teeth. Our parents had to remind us every day. Somebody mentioned this, I think it was yesterday or a couple days ago. I was talking to somebody and they're like, when you learn to brush your teeth, it's a habit, right? Like it's literally, it becomes a habit. You have to be reminded every day for the first few years, but then it's a habit and you just automatically do it. When you start with that preventative health, in every aspect of your life, in your relationships, in your mindset, in your business, your career, your finances, you start making those healthy habits for you. And it's going to be different for everybody because it's we each need different things, right? When you start making those preventative health habits, then you don't have to have the wake-up call. You still will for larger issues or what have you, but how many times have we heard from, I've talked to numerous people in the last 2 years about, cancer, being diagnosed with cancer, and them going, I made no time for myself before I got diagnosed for cancer. Now I make time for myself constantly, right? So there are huge wake-up calls, but normally for the people who get the huge wake-up calls, they haven't put any time and effort into their own health and happiness.
Yes, exactly. I was having a conversation about that very thing today. Someone who had an extremely stressful job that she had for years. And it wasn't until she got put in the hospital that she actually was like, oh, maybe I should start doing things differently. Right. But, and maybe it's that people don't necessarily recognize what some of these ways your body's communicating with you. I think so many people think it's normal to feel tired, anxious, to have insomnia, to have, bloating, to have really bad PMS or whatever your symptoms are. People, I think, forget how good the body was designed to feel and start to feel that these symptoms are normal. I can't tell you how many times I've heard, well, I'm over 40. This is just how I'm supposed to feel. And that's so not true. It's just we're taught that it's normal because it's a normal existence for so many people. So many people are dealing with some of these chronic issues. Our bodies are craving balance. They're craving homeostasis. And when we give them what they need, so often they can achieve it, and that looks like rest. That looks like play. That looks like eating food that nourishes your hormones. That looks like kicking energy vampires to the curb. That looks like doing things that delight your soul on a regular basis. That there's so many aspects to achieving your optimal health. And I think that so many people aren't purposefully not waiting for the wake up call. They just don't realize. They don't realize that the way they feel is not the way they are meant to feel.
Yeah. My mother-in-law is in her late 70s, coming up to her 80s. And that woman is like active and healthy. And, she eats well and she's active and she goes for a walk just about every day that she can. She goes and does her own shopping. Like, she's very healthy. And in today's society, she's very healthy for her age. Very active, very, like we went out and we did gardening for, the weekend, because it's Mother's Day weekend. We did gardening. We went to the nurseries and bought what we needed, and it was go, go, go. Right. And then we all had a nice, relaxing evening. And you're right. Like, you look at kids most of us have kids or were kids. All of us were kids.
Right.
And you look at how you were as a kid. I remember I was go, 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 constantly go. My parents, fed me decently. I was constantly outside in the fresh air, doing things, riding my bike. And I wasn't tired unless I had done excessive physical activity, or until it was the end of the day. And even then, I didn't want to go to bed because I was still I still had the energy. I was still going, going, going. Our bodies are meant to be that way, right? We're meant to be physically active. We're meant to have emotional, physical, mental stimulus that allow us to go through our day but we do need to feed that. Like you mentioned about nutrition, we did an episode on nutrition isn't a bad word the other day, because it really isn't. Your body needs certain things to be happy and healthy. Your nutrition and your emotional and mental health, they're all tied together with your physical health. Everything is tied together. That's why we talk about holistic, right? You have holistic obsession. Holistic is in everything: mind, body, spirit, energy, all of it. And when we put that as a whole and go, how am I helping myself or how am I hindering myself? You really start to kind of identify, okay, well, there's a nudge. Maybe I should work a little bit more on this. And it feels overwhelming at first, especially for somebody who doesn't do any of it. But baby steps, right? Taking, the breathing technique and start putting your body into a relaxed state, going for a walk or having a dance party, or, just making sure that you're standing every hour. We had somebody on talking about standing every hour, right? Instead of lying down or sitting down all day. And just giving yourself what you need.
Yep. I think that that there's that concept, I think, by James Clear. I love his book about making habits. And he says, just focus on getting 1% better every day. I think where a lot of the overwhelm comes in, like you mentioned, is when you try to make way too many lifestyle shifts at one time, like go from 0 to 100, in 2 weeks. That's not realistic for most people. But I feel like maybe society or all these gurus out there on social media that say, oh yeah, you have to do all these things and you have to do them now, right? But that's not realistic for most people. Most people have a lot of things going on in their lives. So exactly like you said before, choose one thing, whether it's nutrition, whether it's movement, whether it's getting to bed earlier, drinking more water, adding, a colorful vegetable to your diet. Maybe it's spending 10 minutes in the sunshine every day. Whatever that is, choose one thing, get really good at it. Choose another thing, get really good at it. Because 1% better every day equals massive change in a year. It doesn't have to be, oh my gosh, I have to make this huge life overhaul in 30 days. Because no one's going to do that. And it's not sustainable.
Mm-hmm. And you have to really want to do it, right? It's, what do they say? A smart man learns from his mistakes. A wise man learns from others, right? And I think that most of us in society these days, as human beings, most of us wait for the wake up call. Most of us don't think it can happen to us. Most of us think, oh, that, I'll cross that bridge when I get to it, or anything along those lines. But again, when we start to take preventative measures, right?
Yes.
I'm hitting 40 this year. I'm literally 40 years old this year. And I look at my mother-in-law who is 80 this year. And I'm like, that's how I want to be in 40 years. The way I'm going, I'm not going to be there in 40 years, right? I'm not eating healthy. I'm not drinking healthy. I am, a smoker who just went from smoking for the last 30 years to now vaping, right? Just to get a little bit closer to not smoking at all, right? And so making those small habit changes. And, my kid who introduced me to smoking, he's like, Mom, you either have to do it or not do it. And I'm like, no, I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it my way. And I chose to do it my way. And what I did was I still bought cigarettes. I had cigarettes at home, but I slowly switched, right? It wasn't like oh my God, I have to do it all right now. It was, no, I slowly switched. And then it was like, I haven't had a cigarette in 3 weeks. 4 weeks now, right? And I'm exclusively vaping because I didn't want to stink anymore. I didn't want any of that anymore. And now I'm noticing I'm not vaping as much now, right? And so slowly I will get rid of that as well. And then no more cigarettes, no more nicotine. It's, and then I'm going to pick something else and I'm going to do that. And, I don't want to get to a point where I have no choice but to do it. I want to be 80 years old. I want to be healthy physically. I want to be healthy mentally, emotionally, energetically. I want to be able to enjoy my grandchildren when I have them. I want to enjoy my 80s, 90s. I want to be that person who gets to choose and gets to experience. I don't want to end up in a home. I want to live on my own until until I can't anymore, right? Till old age decides to take me down, whatever that looks like. But I think for me, it's making that choice. It's understanding that if looking at everybody else in my life, looking at the people that I've known, my family, my friends, their grandparents and parents, and looking at that and going, I could be smart and learn from my lessons, but why don't I be wise and learn from theirs? I want to end up healthy. I want to choose now what I'm going to look like in 40 years. I want to be there in 40 years. And I need to make the choices to get there.
Well, and what you just said, I need to make the choice. So often as a parent, you're making the choice for your kids, especially when they're little itty bitty, right? But it cannot be a situation as an adult, especially where someone's trying to convince you of something. You need to decide for yourself. I'm drawing the line, like you did with the smoking. I'm drawing the line in the sand. I'm choosing not to do this anymore. And sometimes when you're shifting a habit or making a lifestyle change, it can be easy to focus on what you're giving up instead of what you're gaining. So, one of the tips to creating those new habits and shifting into better lifestyle changes is focusing on what you're gaining. Maybe I'm losing the sugar, but what am I gaining? Better blood sugar, better blood sugar balance, fewer headaches, more sustainable energy, no more, highs and lows and crashes. Or maybe you think, I really need to get in bed earlier. I've been going to bed at like 1 a.m. every night. I'm waking up exhausted, but that's my me time. And I don't want to necessarily give that up, but getting in bed an hour earlier, what are you giving up? An hour of whatever kind of fun activity you were doing in the wee hours. What you're gaining is a much better day the next day because you're rested, which impacts your mood, your energy, your cognitive function. It impacts everything. So I think when we can make that shift away from focusing on what we're giving up or what we're leaving behind into what you're getting, I think it can really help with motivation, with momentum, and with long-term consistency, because it's those little changes you may not feel like at the time, well, is it really doing that much? But it is, and it can, It doesn't have to be all of a sudden, I'm eating, paleo for the rest of my life. Again, add one colorful vegetable in a month, one, right? Or, stop eating sugar, 5 out of 7 days or whatever it looks like. But here's what I know to be true, because I've seen it over and over and over with my clients, is that if you start now, before you end up with something extremely serious, those little shifts it's just so much easier to do. It's so much easier to do versus all of a sudden like, okay, now you're diabetic and now you need medication, right? Or, now you have cancer, or now you have an autoimmune disease, right? That's so much harder to fix. It's so much harder to fix.
Yep. And you are absolutely right, because how many adults experience type 2 diabetes? If you, and then you have to deny yourself the sugar, right? Instead of, moderating how much sugar you're taking, now you have to deny yourself it. Everything, like you have to bake without sugar, you have to, and it gets to that point where it's like, now you actually have to deny yourself things. You're not denying yourself sugar if I drink Pepsi 24/7. That's all I drink. I'm horrible. I know eventually I will be, fixing that again. But for now, that's what I do. Now, if I look at it like, well, then I don't get to drink my favorite drink, right? And focusing on what I'm taking away, I get to think, oh, well, then maybe I'm not going to end up a diabetic. And maybe I can still have Pepsi, just maybe in Slurpee form once a month, rather than every day. Maybe I can have, diet, or just change my habits so that things work better. And I don't get to that point. I don't have to have that wake up call where it's like, now I have no choice. Nobody likes feeling like they don't have control. And I think that's one of the things we forget is right now, where we're at, we have control. We get to control what our habits are. We get to control where our life is going and how it's going to look. And we get to make those decisions. When we decide not to wait for that wake-up call, we're keeping our control. We're keeping our power. But if you wait until that wake-up call to make whatever change it is that you need to make, that wake-up call is going to take your control, and then you have none. And that nobody wants that. So take that as the motivation. Get angry. Say, I don't want to give up my control. I don't want to give up everything in my life because I have no choice. I'm going to do what I need to do now, and I'm going to keep my control. I'm going to take ownership and power over my life and the accountability and responsibility that this is my life.
Yeah, I love that so much, that it's not about giving up everything that you want, right? Or everything that you like, until you have to. And I think people can, I wouldn't say that people are lazy or that they don't want to. I think sometimes it's that they don't know how, they don't know where to start. And so what I would encourage people to do is find, pay attention to your body, and what is the one symptom, like your biggest symptom that you're dealing with on a regular basis? Is it fatigue? Is it insomnia? Is it anxiety? Is it bloating? Like, what is it? And start making those little changes, because, when we talk about taking control, taking your power back, we give these things our power, on a daily basis, where sugar controls us, or smoking controls us, or stress controls us, right? And I think we can forget how much power we really have. And we have been disempowered by the habits we have created. We have allowed those habits to disempower us. And part of it is exactly what you said, taking your power back, owning it, and being empowered to make those shifts versus letting those habits disempower you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we get going?
I can talk about this stuff all day long. It's so much fun, but I would just encourage people to, like you said, start with one thing, get really good at it, choose another thing, get really good at it. And before you know it, your life can change in dramatic ways.
Yeah. Stop waiting for the wake up call. You don't need it. Wake up today.
Yep.
Take control. Take your control back. All right.
Exactly.
So for anybody watching, our sponsor again today is Holistic Obsession. Go and check it out. It is Becca's company, and she is offering you the Relaxation Reset Masterclass for $99. Link in the description. So go and check it out. If you want to connect with Becca at any point, her links are in the description of this episode. You can find her, you can reach out to her, you can follow her, and go and check out what she talks about, because why not? She's amazing and you should. For anybody else, if you want to be a guest speaker, if you want to be a guest blogger, or if you want to see your company sponsored big and bold on our platforms, join us at justalivetv.com. Like, follow, and share. Thank you so much, Becca, for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun.
It absolutely was. All right, go and check her out. I will see all of you on the next episode. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon, morning, or evening. And I'm Melissa Krechler, your host, and I will see you next time.